सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः उद्धवो वात्सलो वात्सो भोक्ता च स्वयं सदा. We have been relishing Uddhava Gita, the 11th skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have been seeing the parallels between Bhagavad Gita and Uddhava Gita. In the case of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is a Vyaja. Krishna teaches much more than what Arjuna required on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna's moksha was not the objective. But in the process of teaching Dharma, Krishna ended up giving everything, the entire essence of all the Upanishads. In the case of his conversation with Uddhava, Krishna once again gives the essence of all the Upanishads. But this time, Uddhava is not just a Vyaja. Uddhava is much more. He is the supreme Bhakta. And the teachings are meant to be implemented by Uddhava in totality. So that's the reason why Uddhava is special. Last week we saw how once again Krishna borrows analogies from the Upanishads. We relished that fascinating analogy from the Mundaka Upanishad, which Krishna uses in his conversation with Uddhava. Dva suparna sayuja sakhaya samanam vriksham parishasvajate tayoranyah pippalan swadvati anashnan anyoho abhijagashiti. Krishna uses the same analogy from the Mundaka Upanishad and talks about how the Jivatma and the Paramatma reside, indwell in the same body, just like how two birds are perched on the branch of the same tree. One is constantly feeding itself, eating the fruits of the tree, is in a state of sorrow. The other, which is glorious, which is majestic, is witnessing. So the first bird represents the Jivatma, the second one, the witness, represents the Paramatma. In the 11th chapter of the 11th skanda, Krishna takes up the topic of samsara bandha, the root cause, and he explains the state of an embodied being. Karanam gunasangosya sadasad yoni janmasu, Krishna says in the Gita. If we need to know the cause for samsara, Purushaha prakritistohi bhunkte prakritijan gunan. Karanam gunasangosya. The Purusha, the Jivatma, eternally is situated in Prakriti, eternally is associated with Prakriti. Life after life, this Jivatma acquires different kinds of physical bodies, and it remains trapped in the cycle of repeated births and deaths. What is the root cause? Karanam gunasangosya. Gunasanga. It is attachment to the gunas of Prakriti, which is the karana for samsara. Now in this analogy too, that Krishna gives to Uddhava, the analogy of two birds perched on the tree, the one which is in a state of sorrow, it is constantly eating the fruits of the tree, essentially immersed in experiencing pleasure and pain, which are alternating all the time. Samsara, as we know, is characterized by dualities. Pleasure and pain alternating all the time, whether we like it or not. And pleasure and pain, these dualities are nothing but products of the three gunas of Prakriti. So Krishna once again is explaining what is the karana for this bondage. Karana for samsara shoka, the one which is constantly feeding, essentially immersed in worldliness, experiencing consequences of its own actions, is trapped forever in a state of shoka. Now, what is the exit out of this vicious cycle of samsara? What is this exit out of the cycle created by the three gunas of Prakriti? The Upanishad answers, Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaya shoshati mukhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham asya mahimanamiti vita shokaha. Very beautifully it describes it. It makes a very simple but yet profound statement. Pashyati isham mahimanam. We have seen in the Gita, pashyati means not just seeing, much more. In the 14th chapter also, in the context of describing those who are characterized as gunavasha versus those who are characterized as gunatita, Krishna eventually concludes saying, Mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Now, who's a gunavasha? We are all, samsaris are gunavashas. Vasha, we are in control of the gunas. The gunas control us mercilessly. Unfortunately, we have no control over these gunas. That's the reality. However, we can still transcend the three gunas. This is the beauty of truth. The gunas are so very formidable. We are mercilessly, helplessly trapped, controlled. We are all gunavashas. We are slaves of these gunas. Now, as long as we are gunavashas, we are eating the fruits of our own karma, which are driven by the gunas of Prakriti. Everything that we do is product of guna. The physical body is product of the three gunas. The mind is product of three gunas. The intelligence is product of three gunas. The actions that we do are product of three gunas. The world that we see is product of three gunas. Therefore, everything is an interplay of these three gunas. And we are mercilessly, helplessly controlled. We are gunavashas. Like the first bird, which is constantly in a state of shoka, grief. Samsara, it is said, is dukkhalaya. There is sukha, no doubt, but sukha is fleeting. With every sukha comes coated with dukkha. So that is the reason why we are perennially searching for that state where it is not tainted by dukkha at all. Krishna therefore says, Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno shoshati mukhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati asyam isham. All that is required is to turn, get the direction right. Bhagavan, as Paramatma, is our co-traveler in samsara. He has been traveling with us from time immemorial. In whichever body that we indwell in, he also is a co-indweller. It is only that we fail to notice, recognize his divine presence. The moment pashyati isham mahimanam, which means pashyati here is not just seeing, it is also experiencing. The moment we start not just experiencing gunas of Prakriti, we start experiencing Kalyana Gunas of Bhagavan. Both are experiencing gunas. When we experience gunas of Prakriti, we are gunavasha, we are bound in samsara. When we experience Bhagavat Kalyana Guna, we become gunatita. We transcend the gunas. Krishna says, same thing which Krishna says in the Gita, mamchayaha avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Unwavering, avyabhicharena, unwavering devotion. What happens there? Essentially, Pashya, therefore, is not just seeing, experiencing gunas of Krishna. The beauty is, Krishna is our anchor. Now, he is not just an ordinary anchor. He is anchor the noun, he is anchor the verb. Because anchor the word can be used as both a noun and as a verb. He is anchor the noun, he is the unshakable anchor. And he is the anchor. By holding on to him, we can manage the waves of the ocean, the ups and downs, the dualities. But the beauty is, this anchor not only lets us hold, but is also holding us. We think we are actually holding Krishna. The reality is, he is holding us. We take one step, he takes 1,000 steps, he reciprocates. He pulls us towards him. So therefore, he is both the anchor, the noun, he is also anchor, the verb. And because of that, the moment we get our direction right, and as we start experiencing his Kalyana Gunas, purification happens. And this is what helps us transcend the three gunas. That is the reason why, in the context of Gunatita in the 14th chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, Krishna talks about how the Gunatita ultimately is able to transcend. It is impossible for us to transcend these three gunas on our own. Eventually, we need Krishna to help us, empower us, transcend them. And in this chapter of Uddhava Gita, Krishna is echoing the same message. He talks about the conditioned state of every Jivatma in samsara. Last week, we saw, the week before, the characteristics of a Baddha Jiva and how this Baddha Jiva is trapped in samsara. Now, we all are aspiring for freedom all the time, isn't it? We all want to be free. In a way, moksha is loosely translated as liberation, freedom. But what is this freedom? We must understand. As I said before, in the last session as well, the Jivatma is a slave. So what is freedom to the slave? Is essentially servitude to Bhagavan is moksha. Servitude to Prakriti is samsara. So therefore, when we talk about freedom, there are two stages. Freedom while engaging with the world, and eventually the ultimate freedom, moksha. So the intermediate stage is the stage which Krishna calls Gunatita in Bhagavad Gita, and now in Uddhava Gita, Krishna explains to Uddhava the characteristics of a Gunatita. We once again see parallels here between the Gita and the Uddhava Gita. Now, Krishna starts off talking about what are the key symbols, signs, characteristics of the one who has transcended the three gunas. Now, when we say transcending three gunas, what do we actually mean? Sometimes we get confused. We are meant to cultivate sattva, isn't it? We are meant to manage tamas, rajas, slowly overpower the force of tamas, conquer rajas, cultivate sattva. Yes, but the journey doesn't stop there. Sattva too belongs to Prakriti. Sattva too is the means, not the goal. Let me give an analogy so that we can understand this easily. When it is dark, to find our path, we need moonlight. Sattva is like the moonlight. When the sun rises, we will stop. We don't need to crave for the moon anymore. Moonlight is irrelevant the moment sun rises. Krishna is the sun. Sattva is the moonlight. Samsara is the darkness of ignorance. So therefore sattva has to be cultivated. Sattva is also an anchor, but sattva is a provisional anchor. Krishna is the ultimate anchor. Sattva leads us to Krishna. But once sattva essentially reveals Krishna to us. And then once we anchor, Krishna becomes our anchor, then we would be able to transcend sattva too. Ultimately, because otherwise we will still be attached to happiness and knowledge. Sattva too is binding. Just because the prison gates are gold does not mean that we can remain imprisoned forever, isn't it? So therefore, if the shackles, instead of being iron, if they are in gold, we still would want to be unshackled eventually. So therefore, sattva has its place, but a gunatita transcends not just tamas and rajas. A gunatita eventually transcends sattva too. Sattva is a beautiful companion, is a great partner, leading us all the way to our ultimate partner, to Krishna. After that, we transcend sattva too. So here, just like how Krishna describes the gunatita in the 14th chapter, Krishna to Uddhava also starts to describe. Why now? After explaining the state of this first bird, which is deeply in shoka, the gunavasha, how can it now become gunatita is the next step. To become gunatita, it needs to get its direction right, recognize the Paramatma, its co-indweller, the co-traveler, and by cultivating sattva, eventually transcend all the three and become a gunatita. Gunatita does not mean moksha. Gunatita, moksha is only dehavasane muktishyat. As Bhagavan reveals, dehagavasane moksha is only after this, the utility of this deha comes to an end. Until then, one can remain, continue to be in this world, continue our engagement with this world as gunatita. That's what we're going to see here. Indriya, and we see here again in this particular segment of the conversation a lot of parallels to Krishna's teaching in the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita. I keep saying Gita, Uddhava Gita is also Gita, but then we see here that what Krishna taught very methodically in steps across the various chapters to Arjuna, Krishna now brings all of them and weaves them together to Uddhava. That's again another difference we see, because Uddhava is so very different to Arjuna. Now, Arjuna needed a very step-by-step approach. With Uddhava, Krishna takes a completely different approach. Indriyair indriyarteshu gunairapi guneshu cha grihamaneshvaham kurya na vidwan yastvait avikriyaha. Who is the vidwan? Here uses the word vidwan for gunatita. Who is the vidwan? Indriyair indriyarteshu gunairapi guneshu cha. Tattvavittu mahabaho Gunakarma vibhagashaha gunaguneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. Krishna says, who is the tattvavittu there? Tattvavit is knower of reality, knower of truth, and the one who is a vidwan here are one and the same. Essentially, the one who is able to see reality without the filters of the gunas. This is very important to understand. Essentially, to see everything, the senses are meant to engage with the sense objects. The senses are products of the three gunas. The sense objects are products of the three gunas. The indwelling Atman, who is a gunatita, a vidwan, becomes a witness and is able to see this interplay of the senses with the sense objects and say that this interaction actually does not belong to me. It belongs to the realm of Prakriti. That's exactly what Krishna is, and therefore, na vidwan yas vikriya is not affected by material desires. In Krishna, right in the second chapter, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. Nistraigunya, how to transcend the gunas. He says, Nirdvandaha, Nitya Sattvastaha, Niryogakshema Atmavan, he says. Niryogakshema Atmavan. Here, take in this, we are all engaging with the world only for two things, isn't it? Yoga and Kshema. We don't do anything else. Why do we engage with this world? If we look at the way we lead our lives, all our activities can be only categorized into two. Yoga, Kshema. Yoga means acquisition, procurement, provisions. Kshema means preservation, security. We are constantly either going after acquiring something or trying to secure what we have already acquired. This is what we do. But then, ultimately, the Gunatita, the Vidwan realizes, yoga and Kshema are not my business. It is his business. My business is Ananyas Chintayantoma, Ejanaf Paryupasade. My business, the Jivatma's business, is essentially to serve and love Bhagavan. It is Bhagavan's business to provide the provisions and take care of my protection. Unfortunately, we have got our job description wrong. We think our job description says provision and preservation. That is Bhagavan's job description. And a Gunatita realizes that. And when he realizes that my yoga, my kshema are taken care of by Bhagavan, all that he needs to do therefore is do what he is meant to do, his natural state of loving and serving Bhagavan. And here Krishna therefore remain that this Gunatita, this Vidwan, he uses, look at the words that he uses, Tattvavit, Gunatita, Vidwan, Atmavan. Atmavan is a beautiful word. When he says Niryogakshema Atmavan, Atmavan means one who possesses his own Atma. We can ask, how can I possess myself? You may ask. Atmavan has to be understood very carefully. It is not possessing myself. We all think we are possessors. And we try to possess everything around. We try to possess material possessions, and in that process, we are not possessors, we become possessed. We are possessed of the material possessions we keep trying to possess. Now, Atmavan is one who possesses one thing. The possession is that awareness of who we are. That is what we must possess. That awareness, that consciousness. And the moment I am aware of who I am, then I become possessed not by the material possessions, the possessor of everything, which is Krishna. So Atmavan is one who is possessed by Krishna. He is Atmavan. He is Vidwan. He is Gunatita. He is Tattvavit. And Krishna goes on to say, and how does that Tattvavit, that Atmavan, that Gunatita conduct his life? Evam Viraktaha. Again, We saw references to second and third chapter of the Gita in the earlier shloka. Now we see reference to the fifth chapter. Now, while we relish Uddhava Gita, this is also a test how much we remember Bhagavad Gita. Every shloka of Uddhava Gita ideally must point out to what Krishna taught already in Arjuna. But Arjuna himself went to Krishna and said, I forgot everything. So we have an excuse. We are all Arjuna-like. We are proud to say that, right? We can say, and Krishna will excuse us because he excused Arjuna. So we can keep saying, we all like Krishna. We must aspire to be Uddhava-like. After coming to Uddhava Gita, we realize one thing. We keep saying we must be Arjuna-like, we must be Arjuna-like. Yes, to the extent of doing our duties, we must be Arjuna-like. But to the extent of doing the ultimate duty of our life, we must be Uddhava-like. So therefore, our spiritual journey also has to be divided into two stages. To become Arjuna-like, stage 1, and eventually become Uddhava-like, stage 2. Now, here he says, Evam virakta shayana asanatana majjane darshana sparshana grana bhojana shravanadishu natata bhadyate vidwan tatra tatradayan gunan. Essentially, again, referring to what we saw in the 5th chapter of the Gita, where he says, the Atman as the indweller must be aware that this body is designed to carry out certain functions and it will keep carry on. Shayana, one function that we dutifully perform all the time. Shayana is sleeping, asana sitting, athana walking, majjana bathing. Now and then, darshana seeing, sparshana touching, grana smelling, bhojana eating a lot, shravana hearing, adishu is just giving an example. Now, recognizing that the body is designed to do all these functions, but we are not meant, the body is meant to work for us. We are not meant to work for the body. Now, Gunatita realizes the body is an instrument, it has utility. Now, we always have this question. Should we work with the body or against the body? Should we work for the body or against the body? This is how we look at it. There is one school which says we must work for the body. Like summum bonum of life is pleasure, enjoy. The other says, no, renounce everything, become an ascetic, withdraw, work against the body, suppress. Don't eat for 30 days. Only breathe. If possible, even hold on to that. We have seen examples. So these are two extremes. Luckily for us, Krishna is so gentle, so very compassionate. He knows, he says, no, you don't need to do either. You must not work for the body or against the body. You must work with the body. You must work with the body. The sentence is still not complete. You must work with the body for Krishna. That's when the sentence gets completed. The body is to be used to serve Krishna. Therefore, a Gunatita recognizes that, and thus he knows the bodily functions. The body has to engage. The sense objects are there and the senses will engage with them. But how do I convert every engagement of my senses with the respective sense objects as a service to Krishna? That's where the beauty of transforming mundane actions into Krishna Kainkarya. That's what a Gunatita does. Yasyasyurvita sankalpaha pranendriya manodhiyam vrittayassa vinirmuktaha degastopihi tadgunaihi. Very beautiful shloka. Krishna uses the name vinirmuktaha for a Gunatita. No, muktaha, vinirmuktaha. Mukti after death, but even before death, the Gunatita is also a mukta. No, it is not freedom from action, it is freedom in action. We don't talk about freedom from action. Freedom from action means withdrawal, not doing anything, becoming an ascetic. We continue to engage with the world, act, but we can enjoy freedom in action. Freedom from what? Freedom from the gunas of Prakriti. And therefore here says, Yasyasyur Vita Sankalpaha Prana Indriya Manodiya. One whose prana, senses, Indriyas, Mana and Buddhi, Diya means intelligence, are all freed from the dictatorship of desires. Because desires are like dictators, completely. Now essentially means, desires do not drag me anymore. Essentially means, I have got my hierarchy right. It is all about getting the hierarchy right. In any factory, there are workers, there is a supervisor, there is a manager, there is a CEO, there is an owner. Now, this factory can work well only when the hierarchy is right. If the workers start dictating terms, it will go nowhere. Now, our life is also like a factory. The senses are the workers. The mind is a supervisor. Intelligence is the manager. Right? And the Atman is the CEO and the owner is the Paramatma. Now, if we get the hierarchy right, if everybody is listening to everyone in the hierarchy, everything functions smoothly. For a Gunatita, everything is in proper hierarchy, which means the senses are not dragging the mind away. The mind is not wandering everywhere. Because why? The mind is being controlled and managed by an intelligence which has been surrendered to Krishna's lotus feet. Here again, Krishna is borrowing from his own declaration in Kathopanishad. Vijnana saratiryastu manaha pragrahavan naraha shodvanaha paramapnoti tadvishnoho yat paramam padam. Vijnana sarathiryastu. If Vijnana, the Sarathi, which is meant to control the mind, if that Vijnana is surrendered to Bhagavan, then the vehicle will operate on the road all the way to Vaikuntha. So here, Yasyasyur Vita Sankalpaha Pranendriya Manodhyam Vrittaya Vinirmuktaha Dehastopihi Tadgunaihi. Dehastopihi. The Atman is still in the Deha, which is the product of three gunas. It is continuing to do. Outwardly, Gunatita also remains the same. It is not necessary that Gunatita must only wear orange robes. It is not necessary that Gunatita will have a long beard and he will sit somewhere, outside in a cave, not coming into any city. He will avoid socializing. No. Gunatita can be found anywhere, wearing normal clothes like us. It is not outward characteristics that Krishna is talking about. It is the inward spiritual maturity where one has transcended all the three gunas, Dehastop, and he enjoys total freedom in action, which means everything that the one does is not controlled by the three gunas. Now, Vinirmuktaha is essentially Gunatita. Now, we all remember we spent a lot of time on Gunatita. We spent almost 3 or 4 sessions on the Gunatita. Let's briefly summarize and look at the Vinirmukta, the Gunatita that Krishna is talking about here to Uddhava, which is exactly the same as he talked about to Arjuna. Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava nadveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati. Now, who is a Gunatita? Who is a Vinirmukta here? Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava. Prakasha, pravritti, moha. Prakasha, illumination, which is caused by sattva. Pravritti, activity, caused by rajas. Moha, delusion, dullness, caused by tamas. Now, we have seen that sattva, rajas and tamas is there in each and every one of us. No one is 100% sattvic. No one can be 100% rajasic. No one is 100% tamasic. Now, sattva, rajas and tamas, we are all admixtures of the three gunas. Now, Gunatita is one who recognizes that these gunas keep rising and falling. That is the reason why we keep having these experiences. There is at one point in time when sattva is dominant, suddenly everything becomes so very clear. We see light, illumination. It happens to all of us. When Rajas dominates, we become restless. It happens. When Tamas dominates, we become dull, we become deluded. The same thing which was very clear now becomes completely unclear, confused. We can't take decisions. Looks like everything is done. Now, this happens to everyone because everyone is a product of the three gunas. It only happens to various degrees. A gunatita is one who is able to see the rise and fall of gunas like seeing the clouds. They come, they go. What comes must go. Essentially, a gunatita is one who does not look at the world with the mind. He looks at the mind before looking at the world with the mind. What is looking with the mind? We all look with the mind. Mind is like spectacles. Mind is a product of three gunas. So everything, our engagement with the world is through the spectacles of mind. And everything is colored by the three gunas. A gunatita does not use the mind as spectacles. He looks at the mind which is spectacular. And he knows that it is an admixture of sattva, rajas and tamas. So therefore, I do not identify with my emotions. I identify the emotions. This is the most important characteristic of a gunatita. Emotions come, emotions go. Anger comes, anger goes. Sadness comes, sadness goes. Confusion comes, confusion goes. But I am not anger. I am not my sadness. I am not confusion. Unfortunately, when we identify with them, I become my anger. There is no difference between me and anger. No difference between me and sadness. Gunatita recognizes that these are all passing through me. They are movements. They are movements. Anger is a movement in the mind. What has come into me, just because it is inside me does not mean that it is me. Very important to realize this. When I say I and I point out like this, there is so much to this I which is much more than what is not me. Because this is pointing to the Atman, it is pointing to the physical body, it is pointing to the mind, it is pointing to the content in the mind. None of this is me. Just because it is something inside, it's like just because an intruder comes inside the house and says that from today onwards I am going to be here forever. Are we going to say, welcome, please stay with us, very pleased to have you with us? No. Similarly, anything which is rise and fall of these gunas is like an intruder who has come inside us. Now, just like how, taking another analogy, we all know when we go to a temple, there are all these hawkers all around and they start shouting. And if we get closer to them, their voice increases even more until the point where our attention is completely grabbed. Same thing happens to all our emotions as well, which are all products of the three gunas. Therefore, when I identify them and not identify with them, in that identification itself, I bring a gap between me and the guna-based emotion. So here, the gunatita, therefore, vinirmukta, the freedom in action, which means he does not let the gunas drive my actions. So here Krishna therefore is saying, also another important characteristic of the gunatita, where Krishna, samadukka sukha swastaha, samaloshtasma kanchanaha, tulya priya priyodhiraha, samadukka sukha swastaha. Sukha and dukkha are the same. How can sukha and dukkha be the same? Krishna can come and say and go, but for us sukha and dukkha are not the same, isn't it? No. Sukha and dukkha are the same. It's not about looking at sukha and dukkha as the same. Sukha, when it comes, will also go. Dukkha, when it comes, will also go. One remains unshaken when both the experiences. Both are experiences that are fleeting in nature, and both are labeled by us as sukha or dukkha. Many experiences, many outcomes are labeled by our minds. So what we may think is good for us may not be good for us. So it is our inability to label anything properly again. So how can we once again depend on the mind, which is totally undependable, for labeling and naming any experience or any event or any outcome? Sama loshtashma kanchanaha, Krishna says. Loshta ashma kanchana, mud, stone, gold, one who treats all the three equally. How is this even possible? What is important to understand is, Krishna is not saying the Gunatita does not understand the functional value of the three. Obviously, there is a functional value for mud, functional value for stone, functional value for gold. There is also an economic value for gold. There is an economic value, but it cannot be economic value. There is a difference. Economic is a word I am using. Essentially, I must know the value, but they must not define my value. A Gunatita understands the value of everything. The functional value is understood. A Gunatita uses everything, but never allows himself to be used by them. That is where, so he is a Vinirmukta. Vinirmukta means one who enjoys total freedom in engagement with the world. And then Krishna continues, Nastuvita nindeta kurvata sattvasaduva vadato gunadoshabhyam varjita samadrin munihi. Now, earlier he called him Vidwan, then he called him Vinirmukta, now he is calling him Muni. We in the Gita, Gunatita, Stita Prajna, Muni, Jnani, Bhakta, all these are interchangeably used. Similarly here, now after Vinirmukta is saying Munihi, Nastuvita nanindeta. This is also very interesting, again very relevant to our practical life as well. Very beautiful shloka. Nastuvita nanindeta kurvata sadvasaduva vadato gunadoshabhyam varjita samadrin munihi. Who is that Samadrin Muni, Samadarshana, the Muni, the Gunatita, the Vinirmukta? How does he able to, what kind of Samadarshana? He says, when he looks at people doing right things and wrong things, Nastuvita nanindeta, he says, he neither praises nor condemns. How is it? Is it the right thing to do? How can we not, and kurvata sadvasaduva vadato gunadoshabhyam. So, when somebody does a right thing or a wrong thing, how can we say that the Gunatita neither praises nor condemns? What we need to understand here is, not praising does not mean not appreciating. Appreciation is nourishment. Flattery is intoxication. So, one must indulge in appreciation, no doubt. If someone has done good, appreciation has to be done. Do not praise means do not praise as flattery. Do not praise as an attachment because you are attached to someone. Do not praise impulsively. That is, do not praise. At the same time, somebody has done wrong. Do not condemn has to be understood very carefully. We must not condemn people, we must condemn their behavior. Condemning people is insulting people. Condemning behavior is recognizing and giving an opportunity for anyone who has done wrong to transform. So therefore, here when he says Nastuvita, Nanindeta, the Gunatita understands because he is not colored by the gunas of Prakriti. Therefore, he is able to see everyone. He is able to see every act as a product of three gunas, and appreciation and condemnation is judiciously, carefully used. Na kuryan na vadet kinchin, na dhyayet sadvasaduva, atmaramo anayavrittaya vichare jadavan munihi. Atmaramaha, Krishna also uses this Atmarama in the Gita here. Again, Vidwan, Tattvavit, Vinirmuktaha, Atmaramaha, and also add Gunatita from the Gita. Na kuryanva vadet kinchin. Again, Krishna is speaking in riddles to Uddhava. Na kuryan navadet kinchan. He must not, you should not do. Na kuryan navadet. He must not speak. Is Krishna saying one must completely stop everything and then go into live in caves? How can we not do anything, not speak anything? Right? He's not talking about doing monovrata all the time, stopping to do any actions. No. Na kuryan navadet. Should not do anything means should not do anything reactive. Actions must not be driven by raga and dvesha. So, na kuryan, navadet. Must not, no impulsive speech. Speak one must, but before speech, there must be a pause. Speech cannot be impulsive. Anything, be it praise, blame, anger, flattery, all these happen because of impulsiveness. So therefore, navadet kinchan, no time the gunatita speaks impulsively, acts impulsively. So measured speech, measured actions. Nadhyayet sadhva asadhuva. Constantly, you should not dwell on this is good, that is bad. What exactly he means by that is the mind is constantly giving us a commentary. Just imagine, those of us are cricket buffs, right? Imagine a batsman is playing and also he has headphones listening to the commentary. Now, as he is playing, the commentator is explaining going on. Now, what is going to be the impact on the batsman? And imagine if Arnab Goswami is the commentator. Before the batsman could face the ball, gone, and then batsman is really gone, right? This is exactly what the mind is doing to us. There is a constant chatter. There is a constant, we are all experts in one kind of analysis, right? Analysis paralysis. Any simple thing we can analyze at length. And there are things we have been analyzing for the entire lifetime. What we possibly, and we have not found solution yet. It goes on, we like it, it's a good time pass, we think. Analyzing, multi-dimensional analysis, it goes on. Every time we add one new dimension. So this, and even if there is nobody to have a conversation with, there is commentary going on inside. Multi-dimensional analysis going on. This is good, that is not bad, what if this, what if that, every possible imagination in this world, is going on. So, nadhyayet sadvasa, nadhyayet. Don't use your faculty of dhyana. We all have that power to do dhyana. Unfortunately, we do dhyana on the wrong things, right? So, no comparison, no judgment, no mental commentary, no gossip, no labeling of things. Atma Ramaha, he is Atma Rama. The one, Atma Rama, one who delights in his own true identity. Again, going back to where we started, Atma Rama, when he starts to delight, Vita Shokaha. Samane vrikshe purusho nimagno nishaye shochati mukhyamanaha jushtam yada pashyati anyam isham asya mahimanamiti vita shokaha. Vita shoka, when will one become Atma Ram? One will start delighting. The world is remain the same. Nothing is going to change. But one starts to delight the moment one recognizes that Krishna has been my co-traveler for so long. He's been with me all the time. It's just that one small change. Nothing else has changed in life. Everything remains the same. The outside world remains the same. Wake up in the morning, the problems are going to be the same. The world will function the same. People are going to be the same. But I am Atma Rama. I am blissful. I am delightful. Because why? The Gunatita now has recognized the divine blissful presence of Krishna, his co-traveler. That gives him all the assurance. And that is the Atma Ramaha Anayavrittaya. By this mode of functioning, interestingly, he concludes shloka, Vichare Jadavan Munihi. The Muni, Vichare is going around as Jada, as a madman. I was asking us to go around as madmen. We all know this. Many people say those who go to satsang are mad. Some people even say, poor child, he's only 10 years old. His mother is dragging him all the way to satsang. Poor guy. He has another 60 years in life left to come to satsang. To the outside world, a bhakta is a madman. The madman knows the world is mad. The mad world thinks people who are striving for spiritual attainment, they think they are mad. Vichare jadavan. Because why? The world expects you to react. The world expects you to shout and jump. The world expects you to compete. And compete means what? Win at the cost of somebody else. The world expects you to do everything and anything for you to progress. But when you don't do any of this, they look at you and say, you are mad. The world expects you to be greedy. When you are not greedy, the world looks at you and says, what, you are mad. Isn't it? Unfortunately, the definition of madness depends on who is defining. To a truly, it's like a wise man walks into a mental hospital. All the mental people there, right, running around, who are all unfortunately mentally unsound, they're all looking at this wise man who's calm, serene, having a smile. They're all talking to them. A madman, it seems, has come into the hospital today. Not realizing that they are ignorance of their own madness. The world is like that. So Krishna, therefore, he says, Atma Ramo Anaya Vrittaya Vichare Jadavan Munihi. The Muni is going, he is least bothered because he is not looking for approval from the world. Only when we start looking at the world to approve what we do and not do, because we have given the keys of our happiness to everybody and anybody. And therefore, we are dependent for our own security, our own happiness on the world. If the world doesn't approve what we do, we are sunk. But Atma Ramaha Anaya Vrittaya Vichare Jadavan Munihi. Even if the world thinks, so therefore the world may think, what is going on in satsang every week? I don't know, these people are coming together. They don't realize the bliss of connecting with Krishna. Right? So that Vichare Jadavan Munihi. For the world, he looks like Jadavan. Shabda Brahmani Nishnato na Nishnayat Pareyadi Shamastasya Shamastasya Shamapalaha Yadhenum Iva Rakshataha. Now he talked about the Gunatita, the Vidwan, the Vinirmukta, the Muni. Now how can one come to this stage, right? He's talking of the end product. Again, we must be very clear. When we say the Gunatita has transcended even Sattva, end product, it's a Siddha. He's a Siddha Purusha, not a Sadhaka. For a Sadhaka, Sattva is still required. We cannot tomorrow say that I am going to transcend Sattva, I will stop all my Sattvic activities. I have already transcended it. For all of us, Sattva is our ladder. We must still keep climbing, do everything possible in terms of our sadhanas to cultivate Sattva. For Sadhaka, Sattva is the means. For Siddha Purusha, Krishna is the means. Because Sattva has already revealed Krishna. Now here, this process, obviously Shastra is very important. One needs to cultivate, acquire knowledge. But Krishna here makes a very important point. He says, if one takes up the Shastra, takes up all the Vedas, when we say knowledge systems, we know that knowledge system is not just the Vedas alone. We have Itihasa, we have Itiha Purana, we have everything that goes with it. We have Mimamsa Shastra, we have Vyakarana Shastra, we have Siksha, we have all of that. All of the study of the Shastras must not be an intellectual exercise. He says, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato na Nishnayet Pareyadi. If ultimately we are not seeking Krishna, if we are only studying, Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada beautifully says, it is such a wondrous, we all know, every day we listen to it. Bhajagovindam, 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 Modhamate, Samprapte, Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Dhukrin Karane. When it matters, our intellectual prowess, our command of grammar, our command on Mimamsa Shastra, our command of Nyaya will not come to our rescue. What comes to our rescue? Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam. Govinda, Govinda Nama and Govinda alone. So therefore he says, Shabda Brahmani Nishnato na Nishnayet Pareyadi. Shamastasya Shamopal. He says, if one engages in the Shastra just as an intellectual pursuit, he gives a beautiful analogy. He says, it is like taking care of a cow that does not give milk. What is the point in taking care of a cow? Eventually, if one is not going to get the milk, similarly, if one uses everything for all the Shastra for intellectual pursuit without really seeking Krishna, seeking Bhagavan, it is a wasted effort. Prahlada also similarly says, any vidya tat karma yanna bandhaya sa vidyaya muktaye ayasaya param karma vidya anya shilpa naipunam. Prahlada says, any vidya, if it is not going to take me closer to Bhagavan, that is shilpa naipuna. It is just waste of time. It is just artistry which has no relevance. It's useless tinsel. So therefore here Krishna says the same thing. And therefore what does he recommend therefore one to do? It's a beautiful recommendation which again comes out of what he's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita. Shraddhalur matkata shinvan subhadra lokapavanihi gayan anusmaran karma janma chabhinayan muhu madharte dharma kamartan acharan madapashrayaha labhate nischalam bhaktim mayi Uddhava Sanatane. So he basically concludes this segment. We see how, talking about the Gunatita, the one, the Siddha Purusha, who has now completely anchored in Krishna. Then he talks about the pathway to that, and in that process he says, Shraddhaluhu, the one with Shraddha, Mat Katha Shrinvan. Katha. There is, so the question all of us may ask, how do I also become Gunatita? Do I need to do anything exotic? Nothing exotic needs to be done. Very simple. The process is very, very, very simple. So simple that we may even start questioning it. We have one problem. When we go to someone and we want a solution, right? If they say something simple, we don't believe it, right? We want something very complicated. Because mind is always say, for the mind, anything simple, the mind doesn't have the faith. So Krishna always gives simple solutions to complex problems. We need to tune our mind because ultimately life is meant to be simple. We make it complicated. So Krishna, what is the simple solution? He says, Mat Katha Shrinvan. Listen to Krishna Katha. There is no other means as simple as that. How blissful it is. What is there coming in the way of listening to Krishna Katha, which is Shubhadra Lokapavanehi. The Shubhadra Lokapavanehi, purifies. The more we keep listening to Krishna Katha, the more purified we become. This is the easiest way for purification. There is no other sadhana that is needed. Constantly be immersed in Krishna Katha. Mat Katha Shravanam Shubhadra Lokapavanehi Gayan. Keep singing, wherever, practice in the be a bathroom singer, no problem. But keep singing. We must all sing. Doesn't matter whether others like it or not. Krishna will like it. Singing we must, because this is the only way to use all our faculties to connect with Krishna. Gayan, Anusmaran, constantly keep reflecting on what we have learned, what we have heard, the Krishna Katha. Karma janma chabhinayam muhuhu. This must remind us of the famous shloka from the Gita. Janma karma chame divyam evam yovetti tatpataha tyaktva deham punajjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. And then he says, and in doing so, how do we conduct our lives? Because Krishna also knows, all of us are going to ask the next question. Okay, we will keep listening to Krishna Katha. We will keep singing Krishna Katha. We will keep reflecting on Krishna Katha. We have lives to lead. We have families. Only by singing and listening. Yes, when we do that, everything else also becomes beautiful. And he continues, he says, Madarte dharma kamarthan acharan madapashrayaha. Continue to keep doing your dharma. Continue to do your duties, what you are expected to do, the ordained duties. Continue to Mother Dharma Kamarthan. Yes, fulfill your desires. Go after Artha. No problem. Combine it with Dharma so that it doesn't become Anartha. Artha is fine, but we all engage in Anartha. That is the problem. And he says, Madarte Dharma Kamarthan Acharan Madapashrayah. Do all our acharas. All continue to do our rituals. Continue to practice everything that we must do. But it must be complemented adequately with Matkata Shanman Shubhadra Loka Pavanehi Gayan Anusmaran Karma Janma Chabhinayan Muhu. So essentially in everything that we do, Krishna Smarana must always be sprinkled. Sprinkle Krishna Smarana in everything. We all sprinkle Krishna Smarana on the prasad. That's why it's very tasty. In any work that we do, we can sprinkle Krishna Smarana. If we can sprinkle on the prasad that we cook, why can't we sprinkle on the sale that we do, on the contract that we sign, in the presentations that we make? Why not? In anything that we do, sprinkling Krishna Smarana is possible. Madharte Dharma Kamarthan Acharan Madabashrayah Labhate Nishchalam Bhaktihi. Labhate Nishchalam Bhaktihi. Again, he answers the often asked question. I'm able to do bhakti today, tomorrow I'm not able to do, this morning I did, this evening I'm not able to do, I'm not able to steadily connect with him all the time. Yes, yes, labhate nischalam bhakti. It is a process. Keep doing what you can do, he will do what he will do. Labhate nischalam bhakti mai Uddhava Sanatane. Essentially, the Gunatita is freed from the world, but only when he surrenders to the lotus feet of Vaikunthanatha. Therefore, here Krishna essentially gives a simple, profound, magical, blissful way of transcending the three gunas and enjoying that freedom in the action that we do. Freedom from the gunas of Prakriti. When do we get freedom from the gunas? When we surrender to, when do we get freedom from the gunas, which is product of, which is essentially Maya? When we surrender to Mayavi. Maya is Prakriti, Maya is Jagat. The Jiva, when it is a slave to Jagat, is in samsara. When the Jiva recognizes that it is actually the slave to Jagannatha, moksha prapti happens. We'll continue with the remaining conversation in the 11th chapter, where Uddhava asks Krishna, you've talked about the Muni, now give me examples now of what all the Muni does. Going back to the 12th chapter of the Gita, where Krishna explains the characteristics of a Bhakta. That conversation then concludes with the characteristics of this Muni, this saint. What we call a saint is nothing but someone who is a supreme Bhakta, the Jnani. And we have now found different ways of addressing the same person. And what are the different ways? Gunatita, Vidwan, Atmavan, Tatmavit, Vinirmukta, Munihi, Atmarama, Yogarudha. All that is equal to Krishna Dasa, Krishna Bhakta. Jai Sri Krishna. Sarvam Sai Krishna Arpanamastu.